Coming up next, we've got Aliens. Hey, how's it going, home theater fans and fellow bassheads? My name is Todd with the home theater forum, avnirvana.com, and welcome to episode number 20 of Bass Hunters. And today we are dragging Aliens under the LFE microscope. That's right, 1986's Aliens by James Cameron. This is one of a trio of films that Cameron is re-releasing in 4K, actually for the first time ever. So very exciting stuff. And these films are all dropping just next week on March 12th. Now, I want to give a big shout out to my partner, the great folks over at Kaleidescape. Now, Kaleidescape is giving us access to the best version of content that is out there. And in this case, they're giving us early access. This movie first dropped way back in the beginning of December, basically 4 months ago. You can see there, it's an 81 gig file that is for 4K HDR with Lossless Dolby Atmos. So many thanks to Kaleidescape for providing this movie for us to analyze. Also want to give a shout out to our two other partners in crime. We have Sutherland AV Marketing, which is the North American distribution arm for the speaker manufacturer out of Germany, Ascendo. Ascendo makes some really gnarly and nasty subs. You can see right there, that is the 32-inch infrasonic sub, and I have one of those in my home theater room. We're taking advantage of that in a big way later on this year. But Ascendo, definitely stuff that you want to check out. And if you live here in North America and you have questions about Ascendo and how you can get a hold of it, hit up Sutherland AV Marketing. Okay, let's not waste any time and let's dive right into the scorecard for Aliens. And you can see there, I'm giving this movie a B. I think this one has weathered the storm of time rather well. These special effects, while at moments are a little cheesy, have done pretty well. Overall, this is a fun flick. Fans of the film are really going to like seeing it in 4K when they get their hands on the disc. You can see for video, I'm going B+, and this might be a little controversial. I know that some of these Cameron films have been knocked really hard. I gave True Lies some low marks in the video department, but the exact opposite was true of The Abyss. I thought it looked fantastic. Aliens lies somewhere in between for me. There are some moments where there are close-up shots. Facial details are just off the charts, but then there are some shots that are pulled back, and you start to get that waxy look on faces and a loss of detail. Also, they've taken a lot of the grain out of this film, which is really to its detriment. Now, when it comes to audio, I'm going B-. Unfortunately, this movie is forward heavy. It just relies a lot on the front soundstage. And when surrounds and Atmos effects are brought into the film, they just aren't seamlessly integrated. It's not a very smooth transition, and they sound just, to my ears, clunky. And when it comes to bass, you can see there we're landing in the same kind of territory. So I hate to take it back to True Lies, but I will. When we looked at True Lies on Bass Hunters, we found that bass was very poorly deployed. And then we turn around and we look at The Abyss, another Cameron film, and bass was referenced across the board. Just a phenomenal audio experience. Aliens, it lies somewhere in between. And a lot of the problem is inconsistency in deployment of bass, or straight up lack thereof. So let's take a look at a couple of moments in this film where bass is just kind of a big miss. And then we're going to dive into 3 scenes that are ones that you should definitely check out at home. Now, here's a great example of inconsistency. And what we're looking at here is this APC carrier is approaching this garage door. And I want you to pay attention to this region right here. This is dead on 50 hertz. It's not too extreme, but just enough to give you a sense of engine rumble or mechanized rumble. You can see it right here. And here it is again as the vehicle starts up. And we'll just play that out. And as the vehicle comes back into the picture and shuts down, here it is again. Now, here's that same vehicle approaching, and you'll notice that it is just straight up missing. And this is the case for pretty much every scene that this vehicle is in. There's very little, if any, LFE associated with the vehicle, except for that moment I showed you right there as it's pulling into the garage. Here's another example of the same kind of instance where we have Ripley. She fires up this flamethrower, and as it passes in front of the screen, you get this whooshing sound. Here, we can go ahead and play that. So what you're seeing right here, this is LFE that's associated with that very first whooshing sound right here. Whew. That flame passes in front of the screen, you get that nice deep rumble. But then, as she proceeds to continue to throw that flamethrower right into your face, it's missing. Now, fast forwarding in that same scene, just a few moments later, Ripley gets out her grenade launcher, and boom, we get this nice little pop of bass with that explosion. You can see the explosion right there, and there is the LFE, and it's fairly significant LFE. I mean, we're getting down into the 20 hertz range. Very rare for this movie to dig down that deep, but that's where it's going in this moment. Now we go forward just a second later. She pumps it. She fires that grenade right into the belly. It's a huge blast. Just a mega blast up here. And what do we have? Nothing. You can see right there. There is no low-end response to that giant explosion. And here's another example of inconsistent bass. Right here, we have this ship coming in, and you can see the impact on the rock gives us a decent pop of bass, and that is right in the 30 hertz range. So a nice little bit of rumble. And then as that ship proceeds to explode, right here, there's a massive explosion. Nothing. You would expect to see quite a bit of LFE in this area, but it's non-existent, leaving this scene to sound rather tinny and hollow. Also, when it comes to gunfire, this movie is extraordinarily anemic when it comes to low end. And you can see right here, she is firing this handgun, and there is not a lot going on at all in the low end. And boy, you'd really like to have some nice thuds there. Let's go ahead and play that back so you can hear this in action. Skipping just a little further ahead, and there's a hand grenade blast that results in a massive explosion. And based on what we hear with explosions in other parts of the movie that are well represented down in the low end, this is a very weak response. It's just underwhelming for the scene, leaving that high-pitched explosion sound that just honestly sounds very 1980s. Something else I noted throughout this movie during my analysis is how much of the bass sounds the same. And there's a reason for that. A lot of it has peaks right in the 50 hertz range. And what we're looking at right here are footsteps that are associated with this heavy loader. And you can see right here, it is peaking at 50 hertz. And you start to see a little bit of like a bell curve with a lot of bass that has a similar characteristic. Let's roll through several of these and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, and here is a spaceship that is taking off, and lo and behold, what do we have? A massive peak right at 50 hertz. Here's a large explosion. What do we got? We got a big bump right there at 50 hertz. Okay, remember that hum associated with the APC armored personnel carrier? There it is, right there, peaking right at 50 hertz. This is at the end of the movie right here. This is when Ripley opens the space lock to eject the Queen out into outer space. And check it out, bass peaking right at 50 hertz. And here's a chance for you to see it in motion right here. You're going to see Vasquez, who's sealing a door up, and there's an alien banging on it. You'll see the bass peaking right in that 50 hertz range. And as I said, it's not all gloom and doom when it comes to LFE in this movie. I mean, right here, we have this great sense of environmental rumble as this ship passes by the screen right there. Let's give that a listen. This is one area where they really nailed it. If we just go forward just a little bit here, we'll see another example. There it is, of this ship passing by. And once again, we have some nice low-end rumble associated with it. And they nailed that aspect of the movie when it came to that ship. They got it right every single time. My only complaint, as we saw in The Abyss, the importance of varying that LFE as objects move closer to a screen or further away from a screen. And there's a scene or two where this particular ship is approaching and you would expect the rumble to build, and it just doesn't. But beggars can't be choosers in this particular case, and I'll take exactly what they gave us. All right, so let's take a look at the scenes I used to dissect this film when it comes to bass. And you can see right there, there's 10 scenes. All of the white files there are just used for general analysis. You actually just saw some clips from those. Now, the pink ones I've identified as something special happening. And quite frankly, the first two, they're just examples of where bass is used to some extent rather well. The last one there, Ripley Takes on the Queen, that is the cream of the crop. It's the gem of the movie and the one that we're going to spend more time looking at. Okay, so here's a quick look at the first scene, BH1. It takes place right at the beginning of the movie, and there's just some great rumble associated with this docking ship here. Let's take a listen. Really excellent stuff. And let's pull up that FFT analyzer and we can see that again. This will give you a good sense of the range of frequencies involved in that particular moment. See right here, that's about 25 hertz. Nice textured, even distribution up to about 70 hertz. And as the scene progresses, you can see they are cutting into the cabin there, and there is a great bit of LFE associated with the door actually falling to the ground. Yeah, right there. Let's freeze that. And you can see this is about 90. We're talking about 94 dB, right around close to 30 hertz. So about 27 hertz all the way up through. We're working over to getting close to about 55 hertz. It's just a nice thud. You have some infrasonics that are represented right here just a little bit. That's above reference. So we're getting down to about 18, 19 hertz. So this particular thud is something that you hear, and you also kind of get that room shaking feel. All right, moving along, we're now in scene BH3. This starts around 25 minutes into the film. The troops are getting ready to drop out of the spaceship down to the planet. Let's take a listen. And look at that. We got our 50 hertz peak.
Two 240, nominal profile. We're in the fight, 5 by 5.
Okay, so that was a nice little punch of bass right there. And you can see there are peak values that are, I mean, this right here is definitely hitting well above 102 dB. And we're talking about, I mean, this is down into the 20s. I wish this wasn't here because I'm sure this peak is running right through this area. But that is a really nice hit of bass. I wish more bass was associated with this particular craft throughout the movie. It unfortunately isn't. You can see there, it just kind of dies down, turns back into that rumble, and we're getting that a little bit of that bell curve through here. Here is the hot and heaviest bass moment of the film. They talk about some turbulence that they're about to encounter as they're approaching the planet. Let's give it a listen.
Mr. Child,
How many drops is this for you, Lieutenant?
38.
Okay, we'll stop it right there. Let's flip back over to the FFT analyzer. Okay, so you can see over here, we're hitting well into the hundreds, right down in 20 hertz. So this would be 25 hertz right there. It's very deep, impactful bass. And that's a great home theater moment right there, albeit just a little short, but it does give your subs a chance to get out, stretch their legs with this movie. It just makes me wonder what could have been if they had given that same attention to detail to other scenes in the movie. Okay, so let's jump into the last scene. This is where Ripley is fighting the Queen, and this is a wonderful moment in the movie, which is great news because it is the iconic scene. So if you're looking for a demo moment when it comes to Aliens, this is it. If you're looking to show off your system a little bit, this will do it. Let's check it out.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Such an iconic moment in this film. All right, and as this scene starts, the door opens and we get this great pop of bass. You can see right here we are getting up to a little bit over 90 dB, right around 26 hertz. And once again, we have 50 hertz well represented. And as we go forward and she starts walking here, let me just go ahead and let this play. You can see 50 hertz once again, well represented right there. And then they engage in some physical battle here. And we've got a great punch that Ripley throws with a resounding thud across the Queen. That's a nice bass moment right there, and an important one. I like the fact that they gave that so much emphasis. I mean, right about here, this is about 33 hertz, so a nice representation of low end. And you can see we're getting down into the infrasonics above 75 dB right there. It's probably around 18 hertz, so a nice thud. And it's nice to see things kind of move away from being centered around this area and fall a little lower. And back over to the spectrograph, and we can see right here as this fight is going on, there is quite a bit of bass associated with it. We have Ripley's suit creating these footstep sounds that are nice little thuds. We have some more contact as they are smacking each other around. And then we have some nice bit of warmth added to Ripley right here. She is opening the inner dock door right there, and you're getting a nice little thump. And then they continue to fight and struggle and fall, and there they go, boom, a resounding thud as they land at the bottom of that airlock. And here's a look at the FFT analyzer. Note right here, this is 102 decibels, and right across here we have in the mid 30s, and I'm assuming this is also peaking up right in there. That is a serious pop of bass, folks, right there. All right, skipping ahead, and the airlock is open. Everybody's getting sucked towards outer space. This is nice bass through here too. This is centered around 30 to 40 hertz. And I'm a total sucker for these kind of environmental effects. You know, as the air is just rushing out into outer space, you're feeling it just vibrate through your room. And as we talked about, there is inconsistency. So this is a dramatic moment. You got Newt, she is almost on her way out. And here we have all of this bass whooshing around and just vibrating through your room. And then here, nothing has changed. I mean, the alien is gone, but we still have this dramatic moment, and the bass is very much curtailed through this area right here. And we'll zip ahead, and there's a nice little thud associated with her closing this inner door, and they're all safe. And while not perfect from start to finish, that scene is pretty darn good. It does have a few inconsistencies, but I'm willing to overlook them. It's an iconic moment, and I think fans of the film are really going to enjoy the experience. All right, so what do you need to enjoy this movie from a subwoofer perspective? So if you have a underpowered sub in a large room, or if you have a soundbar set up with a small wireless sub, you're not going to miss out on too much. As I showed you, a lot of bass is centered right in that 50 hertz range, dropping down into the 40s and up into the 60s. So you're still probably going to get a good taste of those moments. Of course, there are a few scenes where you get a big bump out down into the 20s and it is really hot and heavy, and a little bit down into the infrasonics around in the 75 dB range. In those moments, depends on what kind of sub you have as to what you're going to hear. You might hear a little bit of pushback from your sub, but the good news is those moments are far and few between. Of course, if you have a great subsystem that's confident in playing deep and low, it's going to chew those moments up and you're going to be smiling from ear to ear. All right, folks, that is Aliens, and that concludes our review of the trilogy that James Cameron is releasing with True Lies, The Abyss, and Aliens. I hope you enjoyed all of them. We have more coming up from Bass Hunters. I think Beekeeper is next on our list. That will probably be in about 2 weeks. Until then, I hope to see you over on the forum. If you'd like to track me down, you can find me on Twitter. My handle over there is @AVWoofer, and on the forum, my username there is Todd Anderson. Hope to see you there.